"Just kill me fast," she said. Mafia boss found her beaten by her ex. He hunts him down. The warehouse's metal walls groaned against the bitter wind as Bastian Moretti moved through the shadows. His footsteps echoed off concrete, each step measured and purposeful. The scent of rust and decay filled his nostrils. This place had been abandoned for years, the perfect spot for vermin to hide. And he was here to exterminate one particular rat. His men had tracked one of Vincent Cormano's lieutenants to this location. The thought of his rival's name made his jaw clench. Bastian adjusted the gun holstered beneath his tailored jacket, the familiar weight offering cold comfort. A sound caught his attention, not the scurrying of rats or the whistling wind, but something softer. A whimper. Bastian paused, head tilted. There it was again. His training kicked in as he drew his weapon, moving silently toward the sound. The weak beam of moonlight filtering through broken windows cast strange shadows across the floor. That's when he saw her. She lay crumpled on the ground like a broken doll, dark hair matted with blood spreading around her head like a macabre halo. Her clothes were torn, revealing ugly bruises blooming across pale skin. For a moment, Bastian forgot to breathe. He'd seen violence before, had dealt plenty of it himself. But this was different. Keeping his gun ready, he approached carefully. She stirred at his footsteps, eyelids fluttering. When they opened, he found himself staring into pain-glazed eyes that somehow still held a spark of defiance. "Just kill me fast." Her voice was barely a whisper, rough with pain and desperation. Something shifted in Bastian's chest, an unfamiliar sensation he chose to ignore. He should walk away. This woman was clearly connected to his enemies, making her a liability. The smart move would be to put her out of her misery. But as he looked down at her, his finger refused to tighten on the trigger. "Who did this to you?" he demanded, his voice harsh in the empty space. She tried to focus on him, blood trickling from a cut above her eye. "Does it matter?" A bitter laugh turned into a cough. "You're just going to kill me anyway." Bastian holstered his weapon and crouched beside her. Up close, he could see the precision in her injuries. This wasn't random violence. Someone had taken their time, wanted her to suffer. Without warning, he slid one arm under her knees and another behind her shoulders. She gasped in pain as he lifted her, her body trembling against his chest. "What are you doing?" Fear crept into her voice. "Taking what's mine," he replied coldly, already striding toward the exit. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, fragile as a bird with broken wings. The drive to his estate was silent, except for her shallow breathing. His private doctor was already waiting when they arrived, summoned by a single text message. Bastian carried her to one of the guest rooms himself, letting his staff clean her up while the doctor worked. Hours later, he stood in the doorway, watching her sleep. Clean now, but no less broken. The doctor's report sat heavy in his mind. Systematic torture, but nothing fatal. Whoever did this wanted information. When she finally stirred, confusion clouded her features as she took in the luxurious surroundings. Then, fear replaced confusion as her gaze landed on him. "Please," she whispered, trying to sit up despite her injuries. "Let me go." Bastian moved into the room, his presence filling the space. "That's not going to happen." He reached the bed, looking down at her with cold eyes that betrayed none of the turmoil beneath. "You're mine now." He turned and walked to the door, the lock's click echoing with finality. Through the solid wood, he heard her sharp intake of breath. The sound of someone realizing their cage, no matter how gilded, was still a prison. The morning light filtered through heavy curtains, casting a deceptive warmth across the room. Sarah's eyes fluttered open, her body screaming in protest at even that small movement. Silk sheets whispered against her skin, a jarring contrast to the rough concrete floor where she'd expected to die. She forced herself to focus, taking in her surroundings. The room was larger than her entire apartment, decorated in rich creams and deep blues. A crystal chandelier hung overhead, its facets throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. Everything spoke of wealth and power, from the antique furniture to the hand-woven carpet beneath the massive four-poster bed. But luxury couldn't mask the truth. She was trapped. Gingerly, Sarah pushed herself up, biting back a groan. Someone had cleaned and bandaged her wounds, dressed her in soft silk pajamas that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The mirror across the room reflected her battered face, cuts and bruises painting a violent canvas across her skin. The door opened without warning. Bastian Moretti filled the frame, his presence demanding attention. He wore a crisp black suit that highlighted his broad shoulders, but it was his eyes that caught her attention, sharp as steel and just as cold. Yet something else lurked there, something that made her pulse quicken. "You're awake." His voice was deep, controlled. He approached the bed with measured steps, like a predator stalking prey. "Care to tell me who you are?" Sarah pressed her back against the headboard. "Why do you care?" "I found you half dead in my territory." He stopped at the foot of the bed. "That makes you my problem." "I didn't ask to be your problem," she shot back, immediately regretting the flash of defiance when his eyes narrowed. "No?" He placed his hands on the footboard, leaning forward. "Then perhaps you'd prefer I return you to whoever left you bleeding on that warehouse floor." Fear coiled in her stomach, but she lifted her chin. "Maybe I would." "Lying doesn't suit you." He studied her face, his gaze lingering on each bruise, each cut. "Someone took their time with you. This wasn't random violence." Sarah looked away, her hands fisting in the silk sheets. "I don't know what you're talking about." "More lies." He circled the bed slowly, like a shark scenting blood. "You're too well dressed for a street worker, too refined for common criminal circles. Someone invested time in you, trained you perhaps?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. He was too observant, too dangerous. "I'm nobody." "Nobody?" He reached out, catching her chin with surprising gentleness, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Nobody doesn't end up tortured in my territory." The touch sent electricity through her veins. This close, she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely male. His thumb brushed her bottom lip, and she jerked away. "Don't touch me," she whispered, hating how her voice trembled. Something flickered across his face. Anger? Concern? It disappeared too quickly to read. "Then talk to me." The walls seemed to close in. His presence, his questions, the weight of secrets pressing down on her chest until she could barely breathe. Memories of Vincent's hands, his threats, his smile as he slowly broke her down piece by piece. "Vincent," she choked out, tears burning her eyes. "Vincent Cormano." Bastian went absolutely still. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What about Vincent?" His voice was deadly quiet. I was with him." The words tasted like poison. "He's been blackmailing me for years, using me, controlling me." She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold the pieces together. "When I tried to leave." Understanding dawned in Bastian's eyes, followed by a rage so pure it made her flinch. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, knuckles white with restraint. "Cormano did this to you." The question was barely human, more growl than words. Sarah nodded, unable to speak through the tightness in her throat. Bastian's expression transformed into something terrible and beautiful, a promise of violence, of vengeance, of protection. "I'm going to kill him," he said simply, as if discussing the weather. "Slowly, painfully, for every mark he left on you." The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the guest suite as Bastian led Sarah inside. The room was a masterpiece of luxury, plush carpets, silk drapes, and furniture that probably cost more than most cars. But Sarah's eyes went straight to the windows, measuring, calculating. "Don't bother," Bastian said, his voice carrying that dangerous edge she was beginning to recognize. 3 stories up, reinforced glass, and guards patrolling the grounds. Sarah's shoulders tensed. "You can't keep me here." "I can, and I will." He moved closer, his presence filling the space between them. "The world you've been playing in?" "It's not a game, Kara. Vincent Cormano doesn't let his toys go easily." "I'm not anyone's toy," she spat, backing away until she hit the dresser. Bastian's laugh was cold. "No? Then what were you doing with him? Playing house?" The question hit too close to home. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hide how his words made her hands shake. "You don't know anything about me. I know enough." He closed the distance between them, placing his hands on either side of her on the dresser, caging her in. "I know you're running from something bigger than yourself. I know you're in way over your head." His cologne wrapped around her, expensive and masculine. This close, she could see the tiny scar above his right eyebrow, the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed walls. "Let me go," she whispered, hating how weak she sounded. "Please." Something softened in his expression, but his voice remained firm. "You're mine now. You do what I say, when I say it." He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "It's for your own protection." "Protection?" She jerked away from his touch. "You're just another man trying to control me." His eyes hardened. "If I wanted to control you, you'd be in chains, not silk sheets." He stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "Dinner's at 7. Don't be late." The door closed behind him with a decisive click. Sarah waited, counting to 30 before trying the handle. Locked, of course. Hours crawled by like years. She paced the room, searching for weaknesses, escape routes, anything. The windows were indeed reinforced, the door solid oak, but there had to be a way out. Night fell, draping the world in shadows. Sarah pressed her ear to the door, listening. The house had grown quiet, only the occasional footstep of a guard passing by breaking the silence. She pulled a hairpin from her head, thanking whatever god was listening that Bastian's people hadn't thought to take them when they'd cleaned her up. The lock was complex, but not impossible. After several tense minutes, it clicked open. The hallway was dark, moonlight streaming through distant windows. Sarah moved silently, her bare feet making no sound on the thick carpet. She remembered seeing a side door during her earlier exploration through the windows. It had to lead outside. She found it at the end of a service corridor. Her hands trembled as she worked on the lock, sweat making the hairpin slippery in her grip. "Going somewhere?" Sarah's heart stopped. Bastian's voice came from behind her, calm and deadly as a snake about to strike. She spun around, pressing her back against the door. He emerged from the shadows like a nightmare made flesh, his expression unreadable in the darkness. "I told you not to bother." "I can't stay here," she said, reaching blindly for the door handle. "You don't understand." His hand shot out, capturing her wrist in an iron grip. "I understand perfectly." He pulled her away from the door, his other hand coming up to grip her chin. "You're running scared, but you're running in the wrong direction." "Let go of me!" She struggled against his hold, but it was like fighting a mountain. Bastian spun her around, pressing her front against the wall. His body caged her in, warm and solid against her back. "The more you fight this," he growled in her ear, "the harder it will be." He dragged her back inside, locking the door with a decisive click that echoed through the empty corridor. Her resistance only seemed to fuel his dominance, his grip tightening when she tried to pull away. The morning sun filtered through the heavy curtains, casting long shadows across Sarah's luxurious prison. 5 days. She'd been here 5 days, each one bleeding into the next in a haze of silk sheets and gilded furniture. She sat at the window seat, pressing her palm against the cool glass. Bastion's men patrolled the grounds below, their dark suits and watchful eyes a constant reminder of her captivity. They moved with military precision, checking every corner, every shadow. No detail escaped their attention. Planning another escape? Bastion's voice made her jump. She hadn't heard him enter, hadn't heard the door unlock. He stood in the doorway, filling it with his presence. Today he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most cars, the fabric doing nothing to hide the power beneath. Would it matter if I was? Sarah turned back to the window, refusing to let him see how he affected her. How his mere presence made her pulse quicken with equal parts fear and something else she didn't want to name. His footsteps were silent on the plush carpet as he approached. You know the answer to that. Please, she tried, hating the tremor in her voice. Just let me leave. I won't tell anyone about this place, about you. He laughed, the sound devoid of humor. And where would you go, Kara? Back to Vincent? His reflection appeared behind her in the glass. Back to the man who left you bleeding on a warehouse floor? There are other places. No. His hand landed on her shoulder, heavy and warm. There aren't. Sarah shrugged off his touch, standing to face him. You can't keep me here forever. Watch me. His dark eyes traced her face, lingering on the fading bruises. You're safer here than anywhere else. Safe? She gestured at the locked door, the reinforced windows. This isn't safety, Bastion. This is captivity. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. He stepped closer, backing her against the window. You want to leave? Fine, but first tell me where you'll go. Tell me who will protect you when Vincent's men find you. Tell me who will keep you alive when he decides to finish what he started. Each question hit like a physical blow. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold in the truth she didn't want to face. She had nowhere to go, no one to turn to. Her handlers wouldn't extract her. Not yet. Not when she was this close to the inner circle of 2 major crime families. That's what I thought. Bastion's voice softened just slightly. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The gentle gesture felt more dangerous than any threat. You're mine now, Sarah. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. She turned back to the window, watching another guard make his rounds. The estate sprawled before her, beautiful and impossible to escape. High walls surrounded manicured gardens, and beyond that, dense forest. Even if she managed to get out of the house, she'd never make it past the grounds. I had a life, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Before all this. And now you have a new one. His reflection watched her, unreadable. With me. The finality in his voice sent a shiver down her spine. This was her reality now. This gorgeous prison. This dangerous man who looked at her like she was something precious to be locked away. Something he had to possess. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching a bird soar past. Free. The opposite of what she was. What she might ever be again. Bastion moved behind her, close enough that she could feel his heat, but not quite touching. Accept it, Kara. Fighting this will only hurt you more. In the window's reflection, she saw the truth of her situation, written in every line of his face, every guard's movement, every lock and barrier between her and freedom. She was trapped, caught in a web of her own making, with a spider who had no intention of ever letting her go. Sarah's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her breath came in short, painful gasps as she huddled in the corner of her room, knees drawn to her chest. The walls seemed to close in, the luxury of her prison suddenly suffocating. She pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to block out the memories of Vincent, of blood, of warehouse floors and broken promises. The door opened without warning. Through tear-blurred vision, she saw Bastian's tall frame fill the doorway. His usual mask of cold indifference slipped for just a moment when he saw her state. "Breathe," he commanded, but his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. He crossed the room in long strides, crouching before her. "Look at me, Kara. Breathe with me." She tried to turn away, to hide her weakness, but his presence was overwhelming. He settled beside her on the floor, his expensive suit surely getting wrinkled, though he didn't seem to care. "In through your nose," he demonstrated, his chest rising slowly. "Out through your mouth." Against her better judgment, Sarah found herself following his lead. His steady breathing anchored her, pulling her back from the edge of panic. Their shoulders nearly touched, and she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Better?" he asked after several minutes. She nodded, not trusting her voice. His hand rested on the floor between them, inches from hers. The distance felt charged, dangerous in a different way than usual. "The first panic attack I ever saw," he said quietly, "was my sister's. After our father was killed." Sarah turned to look at him, surprised by this voluntary sharing of information. His profile was sharp in the dim light, jaw clenched with old pain. "What happened to him?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Bastian's lips curved in a bitter smile. "What always happens in our world? Someone wanted power. They took it with bullets and blood." His fingers drummed against the floor, almost touching hers. "I was 17, watched them execute him in our own home." The raw pain in his voice made her chest ache. "That's how you took over the family?" "Had to. Someone needed to step up, to protect what was ours." His eyes grew distant. "I hunted down every person involved, made examples of them, earned my reputation in blood and screams until no one dared challenge us again." Sarah shivered at his words, at the casual way he spoke of such violence. But there was something else in his voice. Not pride or pleasure, but resignation. "You never wanted this life," she realized. His laugh was harsh. "Want has nothing to do with it. This is who I am now. What I had to become." He finally turned to look at her, his dark eyes intense. "The things I've done, they're unforgivable. But they kept my family alive, kept our empire standing." She saw it then, the weight he carried, the chains of duty and violence that bound him as surely as her own gilded cage. He wasn't just the cold-blooded killer she'd imagined. He was a man forged in tragedy, shaped by necessity, into something dangerous and deadly. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. "There is no leaving this life," he said simply. "You're born into it, you die in it. That's the rule." His hand shifted slightly, his pinky finger brushing against hers. Neither of them acknowledged the touch, but neither pulled away. They sat in silence, two broken people in a beautiful prison, each carrying their own weight of secrets and pain. For the first time, Sarah saw past the mask of the ruthless Mafia boss. She saw the boy who'd watched his father die, the brother who still remembered his sister's panic attacks, the man who'd sacrificed his soul to protect his family. It didn't make him less dangerous. If anything, it made him more so. But it made him human. The dining room gleamed with old money and power. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the mahogany table, long enough to seat 20, but set for just 2. Sarah sat across from Bastian, hyper-aware of his presence despite the distance between them. The chef had outdone himself tonight. Perfectly seared steak, roasted vegetables, and a bottle of wine that probably cost more than most people made in a month. But Sarah could barely taste any of it. Her focus kept drifting to Bastian's hands as he cut his meat, to the way his throat moved when he swallowed, to the intensity in his dark eyes when he looked at her. "You're not eating," he observed, his voice low and smooth like aged whiskey. "I'm not very hungry." She pushed a piece of asparagus around her plate, trying to ignore the heat that crept up her neck under his scrutiny. "You need your strength." His fork clinked against his plate. You're still healing." The bruises had faded to yellow-green shadows, but they both knew that wasn't what he meant. The wounds that Vincent had left went deeper than skin. "I'm fine," she said automatically, then caught herself using the word she knew he hated. His jaw tightened. "Don't lie to me, Kara. Not about that." The endearment slipped from his lips so naturally, she wondered if he even realized he'd said it. The word wrapped around her like silk, dangerous and soft at once. She reached for her wine glass, needing something to do with her hands. As she lifted it, their eyes met across the table. The air between them shifted, grew heavier. His gaze dropped to her lips as she sipped, and heat bloomed in her chest that had nothing to do with the wine. "Why do you watch me like that?" she asked, setting down her glass with trembling fingers. "Like what?" His voice was deceptively casual, but his eyes were predatory. "Like you want to..." She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Devour you?" He leaned forward slightly, and even though the table separated them, she felt herself drawn toward him. "Because I do." Her breath caught. She should look away, should shut down this dangerous line of conversation. But she couldn't break his gaze. The candlelight caught the angles of his face, softening his usual hardness into something almost beautiful. Deadly beautiful, like a panther before it strikes. "I'm your prisoner," she reminded him, hating how breathless she sounded. "Are you?" He took a slow sip of his wine. "The doors aren't locked anymore. You could leave this room right now." She couldn't. They both knew it. The estate was too well guarded, the world outside too dangerous. But that wasn't what held her in place. It was the way he looked at her, like he could see right through her carefully constructed walls. When she didn't respond, he stood, the movement fluid and graceful. He rounded the table slowly, like a predator stalking its prey. Her heart thundered in her chest as he approached. His hand caught her arm, pulling her to her feet. She stiffened, old fears rising to the surface. But his touch wasn't rough like Vincent's had been. It was firm, but controlled. Possessive, but not cruel. "I could break you," he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "But you don't want that." His other hand came up to brush her hair back from her face. "You want me." The words sent electricity down her spine. He was right. God help her, he was right. But she couldn't trust this, couldn't trust him, couldn't even trust herself. She jerked away from his touch, wrapping her arms around herself. Her skin felt too tight, too hot. She couldn't tell anymore what was real and what was just another form of manipulation. The sound of breaking glass shattered the morning. Quiet. Sarah jumped from where she'd been reading in the mansion's library, her heart racing as angry voices echoed from Bastian's office down the hall. "You lost the entire shipment?" Bastian's voice carried through the walls, cold as ice. $3 million in product, gone?" Sarah crept to the doorway, knowing she should stay away but drawn by a morbid curiosity. Through the partially open door, she saw Bastian standing behind his desk, his shoulders rigid with tension. A man in a suit, Marco, she thought his name was, stood before him, sweating. "Boss, it wasn't my fault. The feds had intel. Not your fault?" Bastian's laugh was hollow. "Who was in charge of security?" "I was, but who was responsible for checking the route?" Marco swallowed hard. "Me, but listen." Bastian moved so fast Sarah barely saw it happen. One moment he was behind the desk, the next he had Marco by the throat, slamming him against the wall. The force knocked an expensive painting to the floor, the frame splintering. 3 years you've worked for me," Bastian said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. 3 years I've trusted you with my business. And this is how you repay that trust? "Please," Marco choked out. "I can fix this." "Fix this?" Bastian's fist connected with Marco's stomach, doubling him over. "How do you plan to fix $3 million in losses? How do you plan to fix the fact that our buyers are waiting for product that doesn't exist?" Another punch, this time to Marco's face. Blood sprayed from his nose, spattering the cream-colored wall. Sarah pressed her hand to her mouth, unable to look away from the violence unfolding before her. "Boss, please!" Marco's words were cut off by another blow. Bastion's movements were precise, calculated. This wasn't the blind rage of a madman. This was the controlled violence of someone who knew exactly how much damage he was inflicting. Each strike was measured, designed to cause maximum pain without killing. "The Russians will want compensation," Bastion continued, his voice still deadly calm. "The Colombians will demand blood. Tell me, Marco, whose blood should I give them?" Marco slumped against the wall, blood running down his chin. "I'm sorry," he wheezed. "It won't happen again." "No," Bastion agreed. "It won't." He stepped back, straightening his cuffs as if he hadn't just beaten a man half to death. Two of his other men appeared in the doorway. They must have been waiting outside. "Take him to the warehouse," Bastion ordered. "Make sure he understands exactly how costly his mistake was." They dragged Marco away, leaving streaks of blood on the pristine floor. Only then did Bastion turn, his eyes finding Sarah where she stood frozen in the doorway. Blood stained his knuckles, drops of it marring his expensive white shirt. His face was a mask of cold authority, but something else flickered in his eyes when he saw her. Regret? Shame? It vanished so quickly she couldn't be sure. He crossed the room to her, and it took everything she had not to step back. This was the man she'd been starting to trust, the one who'd shown her glimpses of tenderness. Now she saw him for what he truly was, a monster wrapped in an expensive suit. His bloody hand came up to cup her face, and she couldn't help flinching. He didn't pull away, his touch firm but not cruel. "This is who I am," he said, his voice rough. "And you're mine now. Don't forget that." Sarah paced the length of Bastion's study, her heart hammering against her ribs. The weight of her secret crushed her chest, making it hard to breathe. She watched him at his desk, his dark head bent over paperwork, completely unaware that his world was about to shatter. "Bastion!" her voice cracked. "I need to tell you something." He looked up, his expression softening just slightly, the way it always did when he looked at her now. That small gesture of tenderness made what she had to do even harder. "What is it?" He set down his pen, giving her his full attention. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold herself together. "I haven't been entirely honest with you." His body tensed, the softness vanishing from his face. "About what?" "About who I am." The words felt like glass in her throat. "Why I was really with Vincent." Bastion rose slowly from his chair, his movements predatory. "Explain." She forced herself to meet his eyes. "I'm an undercover agent. I was assigned to infiltrate Vincent's organization 3 years ago, to gather evidence against him and his entire criminal empire." The silence that followed was deafening. Bastion's face went completely blank, the kind of emptiness that preceded violence. "An agent," he repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "FBI." She took a step back as he approached her. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I was supposed to stay close to Vincent, to learn his operations, his connections. Bastion's laugh was hollow. "Like me? Like my family?" "Yes," she whispered, "but it's not that simple anymore." He moved faster than she expected, backing her against the wall. His hands slammed against the surface on either side of her head, caging her in. "Then explain it to me," he growled. "Make me understand how you could pretend to be afraid of Vincent while working to destroy everything I've built." "I wasn't pretending." Tears burned her eyes. "Vincent figured out what I was 6 months ago. He's been blackmailing me ever since, threatening to expose me if I didn't do exactly what he wanted. That night you found me. He'd discovered I was gathering evidence against him specifically. He nearly killed me." Bastion's jaw clenched. "And what about me? Was getting close to me part of your mission too?" No. She reached for him, but he jerked away. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Everything with you has been real. I never meant to feel this way about you. Feel what way? His voice was razor sharp. Like I was just another mark? Another criminal you could manipulate? Like I was falling in love with you. The words burst out of her. I've compromised everything I believed in, because I can't bear the thought of betraying you. Don't you understand? I'm telling you this because I can't lie to you anymore. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, betrayal, and something deeper that made her heart ache. Then his expression hardened again. You expect me to believe that? He grabbed her arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. After you've spent years lying to everyone around you? Bastian, please, shut up. He dragged her from the study, his stride eating up the hallway as he pulled her along. She struggled, but his grip was iron. They reached her room, and he shoved her inside. I trusted you, he snarled. I let you see parts of me no one else has ever seen. And this whole time, you were working to destroy everything I care about. That's not true anymore. She grabbed the door as he started to close it. I chose you over my mission, over everything. His eyes met hers, and the raw pain she saw there stole her breath. I never trusted anyone the way I trusted you, he said, his voice rough, and you turned it all into a lie. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked with finality, trapping her inside with nothing but the sound of his footsteps walking away. 3 days passed like a funeral procession. Sarah remained locked in her room, meals delivered by stone-faced guards who wouldn't meet her eyes. But she felt Bastian's presence everywhere, in the shadow that crossed her doorway at night, in the slight adjustments to her room's temperature, in the way her favorite fruit still appeared on her breakfast tray despite everything. She caught glimpses of him through the window, pacing the grounds like a caged animal. His broad shoulders were tense, his movements predatory. Sometimes he'd stop and stare up at her window, his dark eyes finding hers with unerring accuracy. The intensity of his gaze made her shiver, even from a distance. On the 4th night, she heard the lock turn. Bastian filled the doorway, backlit by the hallway lights. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal corded forearms. He looked dangerous and beautiful, like a fallen angel seeking vengeance. You haven't been eating, he said, his voice rough. I didn't think you cared anymore. He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The click echoed in the silence. I shouldn't. But you do. She stood from the window seat, forcing herself not to back away as he approached. You can't stop watching me, can't stop checking on me. Because you're mine. His words came out as a growl. Even if you're a liar, even if you're here to destroy everything I've built, you're still mine. I told you the truth because I couldn't bear lying to you anymore. She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated despite the way her heart raced. I chose you over my mission, over everything I believed in. Did you? He moved closer, backing her against the wall. Or is this just another play? Another way to get close to me? His hands slammed against the wall on either side of her head, caging her in. The heat of his body pressed against hers, making it hard to think. His cologne, sandalwood, and spice filled her senses. You know it's not, she whispered. You can feel it too. This thing between us, it's real. His eyes darkened. One hand moved to her throat, not squeezing, just holding. I should hate you. But you don't. Something snapped in him. His mouth crashed down on hers, brutal and demanding. She gasped and he took advantage, deepening the kiss. His tongue swept inside, claiming, conquering. His other hand fisted in her hair, holding her still for his assault. She fought back, biting his lower lip hard enough to draw blood. He growled, the sound vibrating through her body. His grip tightened in her hair, pulling her head back to expose her throat. Fight me all you want, he murmured against her skin. It won't change anything. You're mine. I'm not your possession, she gasped, even as her body betrayed her, arching into his touch. No? His teeth scraped her pulse point. Then why are you trembling? Why can I feel your heart racing? She grabbed his shoulders, intending to push him away. Instead, her fingers dug into hard muscle, pulling him closer. His laugh was dark and knowing. The kiss that followed was different, slower, deeper, filled with a hunger that had nothing to do with anger. His hand softened on her throat, thumb stroking over her racing pulse. She moaned into his mouth, and something inside him seemed to break. He pressed closer, pinning her completely against the wall. Every hard line of his body aligned with hers, making it impossible to ignore how much he wanted her. His free hand slid down her side, gripping her hip with bruising force. "Tell me to stop," he demanded against her lips. "Tell me you don't want this." Instead of answering, she kissed him back, pouring all her frustrated longing into it. He groaned, the sound desperate and hungry. Their kisses turned wild, hands grabbing, bodies pressing closer, neither willing to let go despite everything between them. Morning light filtered through the heavy curtains, casting long shadows across Sarah's bed. Her body ached, marked by Bastian's passionate assault from the night before. She touched her lips, still swollen from his kisses, remembering how desperately he'd claimed her. But the cold light of day brought reality crashing back. When she entered the dining room, Bastian sat at the head of the long table, reading reports on his tablet. He didn't look up. His coffee cup sat untouched, a thin spiral of steam rising into the air. The distance between them felt like miles. "Good morning," she said softly. His jaw tightened. He didn't respond. Sarah slid into her usual seat, her appetite vanishing at his coldness. A maid appeared silently, placing a plate of fresh fruit and pastries before her. The china clinked against the wooden table, the sound sharp in the heavy silence. "About last night," she began. "Don't." His voice was ice. He still wouldn't look at her. "Whatever happened last night changes nothing. You're still a liability." The words cut deep. Sarah pushed a strawberry around her plate, watching the red fruit leave trails of juice like blood. "I understand why you don't trust me. But what I told you was the truth." "The truth?" Now he looked up, his dark eyes burning with controlled fury. "You mean how you admitted to being an undercover agent only after I—" He stopped, his knuckles white around his coffee cup. "After I let you in. I never meant to— To what? To lie? To betray everything?" He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You were sent here to destroy my family. That's the only truth that matters." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "My mission was to take down Vincent Cormano, not you. And the difference?" He laughed, the sound hollow. "We're all the same to people like you. Just criminals to be locked away." He stalked to the window, his broad shoulders tense under his perfectly tailored suit. Sarah watched him, seeing the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Even angry, he was beautiful, dangerous, and magnetic. "You're not the same," she whispered. "I've seen who you really are." "Have you?" He turned, his expression savage. "Because last night all I saw was how well you can play your part, how easily you can make a man believe what you want him to believe." The accusation stung. "That wasn't an act. Nothing about how I feel for you is an act." His laugh was cruel. "Save your lies for someone who hasn't seen behind your mask, Agent Lancaster." The use of her title felt like a slap. Sarah pushed away from the table, her chair clattering to the floor. "Fine. Believe what you want. But remember who came clean first. Remember who chose to tell you the truth, even knowing what it would cost." She fled the dining room, her vision blurring with unshed tears. In her suite, she collapsed onto the bed, her body shaking with suppressed sobs. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a number she recognized all too well. Her handler. Sarah stared at the screen, her heart pounding. With trembling fingers, she answered. "Agent Lancaster," the cool voice said. "Status report." She swallowed hard. "I'm in position." "Excellent. We need you to proceed with the next phase. Get close to Moretti. Find out everything you can about his operation." The irony of the order wasn't lost on her. She'd gotten close all right, close enough to have her heart torn out. "Agent Lancaster, do you copy?" Sarah closed her eyes, seeing Bastian's face. Not the cold mask he wore now, but the vulnerable look he'd given her last night, when he'd whispered her name like a prayer. "I copy," she said mechanically. I'll proceed as planned." But even as she said the words, she knew they were lies. The mission that had defined her life now felt hollow. The line between duty and love had become hopelessly tangled, and she wasn't sure she could find her way back. Bastian paced his office like a caged animal, his fingers drumming against his thigh. The security feeds on his monitors showed every angle of the estate, including Sarah's room, where she sat curled in an armchair, reading. He shouldn't care. She was a traitor, an agent sent to destroy everything he'd built. But the thought of Vincent getting his hands on her again made his blood boil. Marco, his head of security, cleared his throat. "Boss, our sources confirm it. Vincent's been asking questions about her. Specific questions." Bastian's jaw clenched. What kind of questions? About her background, her connections. Marco shifted uncomfortably. He's digging into her past assignments. If he hasn't figured out she's an agent yet, he will soon. The crystal tumbler on Bastian's desk shattered in his grip, whiskey and blood mixing as glass bit into his palm. He barely felt it. "Double the guards. No one gets within a mile of this place without my knowing." "Already done." Marco hesitated. "But boss, if she's working against us..." "She's mine to deal with," Bastian snapped. "No one else touches her." After Marco left, Bastian stood at his window, watching the rain streak down the bulletproof glass. The cut on his palm throbbed, but he welcomed the pain. It was easier to focus on than the ache in his chest whenever he thought of Sarah. Movement on one of the monitors caught his eye. Sarah had moved to her window, pressing her forehead against the glass. The loneliness in her posture made his throat tight. Even now, knowing what she was, he wanted to go to her, to wrap her in his arms, and the door opened behind him. "I said I didn't want to be disturbed." "I brought medical supplies." Sarah's soft voice made him stiffen. "The maid said you were hurt." He turned slowly. She stood in the doorway, first aid kit in hand, wearing a simple sweater and jeans that somehow made her more beautiful than any evening gown. Her hair fell in loose waves around her face, and her eyes, those damn eyes that had haunted his dreams, were full of concern. "I don't need your help." She lifted her chin. "Your hand is bleeding all over your expensive carpet." Before he could stop her, she crossed the room and set the kit on his desk. When she reached for his injured hand, he jerked back. "Don't. Stop being stubborn." She caught his wrist, her touch gentle but firm. "Let me help you." He could have pulled away. Should have. Instead, he stood frozen as she carefully cleaned the cuts, picking out tiny shards of glass. Her hands were steady, professional. She'd clearly done this before. "Part of your training?" he asked bitterly. She didn't look up from her task. "Actually, I learned this taking care of my little brother. He was always getting into fights." The casual mention of her past, her real past, made his chest tighten. "Was any of it real? Anything you told me?" Her fingers stilled on his palm. "More than I should have let it be." Before he could process that, his phone buzzed. The message was simple. A photo of Sarah, clearly taken earlier that day when she'd been by the window, followed by Vincent's words. "She'll look beautiful bleeding out on your floor." A growl ripped from Bastian's throat. He yanked Sarah against him with his good hand, his body curling around hers protectively. She gasped, her hands pressed against his chest, but he barely heard it over the roaring in his ears. "You're mine," he snarled, his grip tightening. "And no one touches what's mine." She trembled in his arms, but she didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled into his shirt, holding on just as tightly as he held her. Sarah couldn't move, trapped between Bastian's solid chest and the edge of his desk. His phone lay discarded beside them, the threatening message still glowing on the screen. The rage rolling off him was almost tangible, a living thing that made the air heavy and electric. His fingers dug into her waist, not enough to hurt, but enough to remind her of the strength he contained. She could feel his heartbeat hammering against her palms, where they pressed against his chest. The cut on his hand left spots of blood on her sweater, but neither of them seemed to notice. "Call everyone," Bastian commanded, his voice carrying across the room to where Marco still stood. "I want eyes on every entrance, every window. No one gets within breathing distance of this property." Marco nodded sharply and left, already speaking rapid Italian into his phone. The door hadn't even closed before more men started flooding in, their faces grim and focused. Sarah watched as Bastian's world sprang into action around them, efficient and deadly. He never loosened his grip on her. Orders flew across the room in a mix of English and Italian. Security feeds appeared on multiple screens, showing the grounds from every angle. Men with guns took up positions throughout the estate. In minutes, the mansion had transformed into a fortress. "The southwest corridor needs reinforcement," one of Bastian's men reported. "It's the weakest point of entry." "Triple the guards there," Bastian snapped. "And get someone on those cameras. I want facial recognition running on everyone within a mile radius." Sarah felt the tremor in his hands where they held her. Not fear. Bastian Moretti didn't know fear, but pure, deadly fury. She'd seen him angry before, seen him violent, but this was different. This was calculated rage, the kind that ended in blood. "Your hand," she whispered, suddenly remembering the cuts she hadn't finished cleaning. "Let me—" "It doesn't matter." His voice was rough against her ear. "Nothing matters except keeping you safe." The words sent a shiver down her spine. This was why she'd failed her mission so spectacularly. This man, this dangerous, brutal man, who could order deaths without blinking, but touched her like she was precious. Who knew she was sent to destroy him, but still protected her? She watched as he coordinated his men, turning his estate into an impenetrable fortress. Every order was precise, every movement calculated. This was the world she'd been sent to infiltrate, to bring down from within. But standing here, feeling the protective curl of his body around hers, she couldn't remember why she'd ever agreed to the mission. The room gradually emptied as men departed to their assigned posts. Soon, it was just them, surrounded by the soft hum of electronics and the ghost of violence waiting to explode. "I should have killed him months ago," Bastian muttered more to himself than her. "Should have put a bullet in his head the first time he looked at you." Sarah lifted her head from his chest. "This isn't your fault." His laugh was bitter. "No, it's yours." His grip tightened fractionally. "You and your goddamn mission. But it doesn't matter now. He's not getting anywhere near you." She should have been frightened. This possessive, violent man had her trapped in his world of blood and power. But all she felt was safe, protected, wanted. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. The gentleness of the gesture contrasted sharply with the deadly promises in his eyes. "Don't ever try to leave me," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion he'd never admit to feeling. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. This wasn't just about Vincent's threat. This was about her mission, about the betrayal that still sat raw between them, about the feelings neither of them had meant to develop. The security monitors cast a blue glow across Bastian's office as the night deepened. Sarah sat on the leather couch, watching him pace like a caged animal. His shoulders were tight with tension, the cut on his hand now hastily bandaged. The events of the night had left them both raw. emotions too close to the surface. "You should get some rest," she said softly, but Bastian shook his head. "I need to stay alert." His voice was gruff, exhausted. "Vincent could... Your men have everything covered." Sarah stood, crossing the room to him. "You're no good to anyone if you're dead on your feet." He turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. The mask he usually wore was cracking, showing glimpses of the turmoil beneath. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. "I can't lose you," he admitted, the words seeming to cost him something precious. "The thought of him getting to you," his jaw clenched. "I've never felt this weakness before." Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. "It's not weakness to care about someone." "In my world, it is." His fingers threaded through her hair, cradling the back of her head. "Everything I feel for you, it makes me vulnerable, makes me stupid. I should have thrown you out the moment I learned what you were." "Why didn't you?" His laugh was harsh. "Because I'm already in too deep." He pressed his forehead against hers, breathing ragged. "You've gotten under my skin, into my blood. I'm falling for you, and I can't stop it." The confession hung between them, heavy with meaning. Sarah's hands found his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her palms. All the barriers between them, her mission, his world, their mutual distrust, seemed to crumble. "I'm falling for you, too," she whispered. Something broke in Bastian's expression. He crushed his mouth to hers, the kiss desperate and deep. Sarah melted into him, her fingers clutching his shirt as he backed her against the wall. His body pressed against hers, solid and warm, protecting her from the world outside. The kiss turned slower, deeper, as if they had all the time in the world. His hands roamed her body with reverence, memorizing every curve. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Sarah saw something she'd never seen in Bastian's eyes before. Vulnerability. "Stay with me tonight," he murmured against her lips. "Not because I need to protect you. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you want to." Sarah's answer was to kiss him again, pouring everything she couldn't say into the gesture. His arms wrapped around her, lifting her easily. They made their way to his bedroom, never breaking contact, as if afraid the spell would break if they let go. In his bed, their passion turned tender. Every touch was an admission, every kiss a promise neither of them had meant to make. They took their time exploring each other, learning what made the other gasp and shiver. When they finally came together, it wasn't just physical. It was an emotional surrender that left them both shaken. Afterward, Sarah lay in Bastian's arms, her head on his chest. His fingers traced lazy patterns on her bare shoulder as their breathing slowly returned to normal. The tension that had gripped him earlier had finally eased, replaced by a peaceful quiet. "I never meant for any of this to happen," she confessed into the darkness. "Neither did I." His arms tightened around her. "But here we are." They fell silent, listening to each other's heartbeats. For the first time since she'd entered his world, Sarah felt truly safe. The danger still lurked outside, Vincent's threat still hung over them, but in this moment, nothing else mattered. Bastian pressed a kiss to her temple as exhaustion began to pull at them both. No more words were needed as they drifted off, tangled in each other's arms, finding a peace neither had thought possible in their dangerous world. The morning sun cast long shadows through Bastian's office as he stared at the phone in his hands, his knuckles white from gripping it too hard. Text messages, dozens of them, sent to an unknown number. His tech team had finally cracked Sarah's encrypted phone, and what he found made his blood run cold. She'd been reporting everything, every detail of his operation, every weakness she'd observed, every intimate moment they'd shared, all of it fed back to her handlers in carefully coded messages. The door opened, and Sarah walked in, her smile fading as she caught sight of his expression. "Bastion? What's wrong?" He looked up slowly, his eyes harder than she'd ever seen them. Without a word, he turned the phone's screen toward her. She froze, color draining from her face as she recognized her own messages. "I can explain," she whispered. "Explain?" His voice was deadly quiet. "Explain how you've been gathering intelligence on my family? How you've been documenting every move we make?" He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "How you used last night to get closer to me?" Sarah took a step forward, but he held up his hand, stopping her. Don't you dare try to manipulate me again." "It's not manipulation." Her voice cracked. "Yes, I've been reporting back. That's my job. But what happened between us? That's real, Bastion. You have to believe me." "I don't have to believe anything you say." He circled his desk, his movements predatory. "You played me perfectly, didn't you? Got me to trust you, to let you in. Made me think you actually cared." Tears welled in her eyes. "I do care. Everything changed when I fell in love with you. I've been holding back information, trying to protect you." "Protect me?" He laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "By telling them about the shipment routes? About our security protocols? About my private office codes?" She flinched. "I had to send something or they'd know something was wrong. But I never gave them anything that could truly hurt you." Bastion's hand shot out, grabbing her arm. "You gave them everything. Every weakness, every vulnerability." His grip tightened. "Was that your plan all along? Get close enough to destroy me from the inside?" "No." She tried to touch his face, but he jerked away. "I was assigned to investigate Vincent, to gather evidence against his operation. You weren't even supposed to be part of this. But I became a better target, didn't I?" His voice dripped with venom. "A bigger fish to catch. The great Bastion Moretti, brought down by a woman he was stupid enough to trust." Sarah's tears fell freely now. "That's not what this is. I love you, Bastion. I've tried to fight it, tried to stay focused on my mission, but I can't anymore. What we have is real. What we have is nothing but lies." He released her arm, turning away. "Get out." "No." Her voice strengthened. "I won't leave. Not like this." He whirled back to face her. "You don't have a choice. I want you gone within the hour." "Listen to me," she pleaded, reaching for him again. "I know I've betrayed your trust. I know I've hurt you. But my feelings for you are real. Everything that happened between us last night, that was real. Was it?" His eyes burned into hers. "Or was it just another way to get information? Another note to send back to your handlers?" She shook her head desperately. "I haven't reported anything since things changed. Check the timestamps on those messages. Nothing recent, nothing about us." Bastion's jaw clenched as he fought against the hope her words tried to spark. "It doesn't matter. You're a liability I can't afford." "I'm more than that, and you know it." She stepped closer, into his space. "I'm the woman who knows every dark part of you and loves you anyway. I'm the one who sees past the monster everyone else fears." His hands fisted at his sides, fighting the urge to pull her close. "You're also the one who betrayed me, who used everything I gave you against me." "Then let me make it right," she begged. "Let me prove to you that what we have is worth fighting for." But Bastion's walls were back up, his expression cold and distant. "Guards will escort you out. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Sarah stood her ground, tears streaming down her face. "I won't give up on us, Bastion. Not like this." Sarah's hands trembled as she pulled up to the abandoned parking lot. The familiar black sedan was already waiting, and her stomach twisted at the sight. Agent Thompson leaned against his car, his expression grim beneath the flickering streetlight. "I can't do this anymore," she said as soon as she stepped out. "I'm done." Thompson's face hardened. "That's not how this works, Lancaster. You don't get to just walk away. Watch me. She turned to leave, but his next words stopped her cold. If you walk away now, Moretti dies. She froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. What? We have enough evidence to take down his entire operation. Thompson pulled out a thick file. Financial records, shipping manifests, murder charges, everything you've given us. One phone call, and tactical teams move in. How long do you think he'll last in a firefight? You can't, her voice cracked. We can, and we will. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. You're too close to blow this now. We've invested years in this operation. Vincent Cormano was just the beginning. The Moretti family is the real target. Sarah's world spun. All this time she thought she was working to bring down Vincent, but she'd been a pawn in a much bigger game. He's not what you think, she whispered. Bastian, he's a murderer? A criminal? Wake up, Serafina. Thompson's voice turned harsh. He's exactly what we think. The fact that you've fallen for him just proves how good he is at manipulation. But she knew better. She'd seen the real Bastian, the man who held her through nightmares, who showed tenderness when no one was watching, the man who'd rather die than let anyone hurt her. I won't help you destroy him. Thompson smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You don't have a choice, either. You continue feeding us information, or we move in tonight. And trust me, it won't be clean. Images flashed through her mind. Bastian's compound under siege, bullets flying, blood spilling. She couldn't let that happen. What do you want? The words tasted like ash. Keep doing your job, get closer. Find out about his international connections. Thompson handed her a new burner phone. We need everything. Her fingers closed around the cold plastic. And if I do this, you'll leave him alone? As long as you play ball, we'll wait. He checked his watch. You have 24 hours to get back in there and convince him to trust you again. Don't disappoint me. Sarah got back in her car, her mind racing. She couldn't let them hurt Bastian, but she couldn't betray him again either. There was only one option left. She drove back to the compound, her decision made. The guards let her through. Bastian hadn't changed the security protocols yet. She found him in his office, still radiating fury from their earlier confrontation. I told you to leave, he growled. I know. She closed the door behind her. But you need to hear this. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't stop her as she approached his desk. Her hands shook as she placed Thompson's phone between them. They want me to keep spying on you. The words rushed out. They threatened to kill you if I don't. The whole operation. It was never about Vincent. They're after your family, your entire organization. Bastian's expression darkened with each word. Why are you telling me this? Because I choose you. Her voice broke. I won't let them hurt you, even if it means destroying everything I've worked for. Even if it means they come after me next. He stood slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. You understand what you're doing? There's no going back from this. I know. She met his gaze steadily. But I can't lose you. Not like this. The tension in the room was suffocating as Bastian processed her words. Their world was about to become even more dangerous, but at least now they faced it together. Bastian's office became their war room as midnight approached. Maps and documents spread across his mahogany desk, while security feeds flickered on multiple screens mounted on the wall. Sarah stood beside him, her shoulder brushing his as they studied Vincent's known territories. He has holdings here, here, and here. Sarah pointed to different locations on the map. But his main base of operations is this warehouse district. Her finger landed on an industrial zone near the port. Bastian's jaw clenched. You're certain? I spent 2 years gathering intelligence on him. She met his dark gaze. I know every dirty secret, every weak spot. He traced a finger along the map's edge, his presence both comforting and dangerous. And now those secrets are ours to use. Vincent's paranoid, but predictable. Sarah pulled out a detailed floor plan. He keeps his most trusted men close, runs everything, through a chain of command. But there's always a gap in the rotation between 2 and 3 a.m. Bastian's eyes narrowed as he studied the patterns she'd documented. His fingers brushed against hers as he took the papers, sending electricity through her skin. You were thorough. I had to be. She swallowed hard. It was my job to know everything. His expression darkened at the reminder of her past deception, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he turned to face her fully, his massive frame blocking out the overhead lights. And now? What's your job now? To keep you alive. The words came without hesitation. To end this. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Together? Together. He nodded, then called in his security team. 4 men entered, each carrying weapons and tech equipment. They spread out around the office as Bastian began outlining their strategy. Vincent's men will be watching for movement, he said. We need to be invisible until we strike. He turned to his head of security. Marco, I want surveillance on every corner of that district. If a rat scurries past, I want to know about it. Marco nodded, already typing on his tablet. We'll have eyes everywhere within hours, boss. Sarah stepped forward. There's something else you should know. All eyes turned to her. Vincent doesn't just have criminals on his payroll. He's got cops, judges, even some federal agents. We can't trust anyone outside this room. Bastian's hand found the small of her back, a possessive touch that sent warmth through her body. Then we trust no one outside this room. He addressed his men. This operation stays completely dark. No phones, no outside contact. Anyone breaks protocol, they're dead. The men nodded, understanding the gravity of their situation. As they dispersed to begin preparations, Sarah felt the weight of what they were planning settle over her. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about taking down one of the most powerful crime bosses in the city. When they were alone again, Bastian pulled her close. His hands framed her face, forcing her to look up at him. Are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no turning back. She reached up, placing her hand over his heart. Through his expensive suit, she could feel its steady beat. I've never been more sure of anything. His eyes darkened with intensity. If anything happens to you, it won't. She pressed closer. We're stronger together. Vincent won't expect that. He thinks he can use me against you, but he doesn't understand what we have. Bastian's grip tightened possessively. No, he doesn't. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. And he never will. You're mine now, completely. I'll burn this whole city down before I let anyone take you from me. The promise in his words should have frightened her, but instead, it made her feel safer than she'd ever been. In his arms, surrounded by his strength and protection, she knew she'd made the right choice. Whatever came. Next, they would face it together. The night air crackled with tension as Bastian's convoy of black SUVs rolled silently through the industrial district. Sarah sat beside him in the lead vehicle, her heart pounding against her ribs. She'd traded her usual clothes for tactical gear, black pants, reinforced vest, and combat boots. A gun pressed reassuringly against her hip. Bastian looked dangerous in all black, his usual suit replaced with similar tactical gear. His eyes hadn't left the tablet showing their team's positions around Vincent's warehouse. Alpha team in position, he murmured, touching his earpiece. Beta, status? Ready on your mark, boss, came the quiet response. Sarah studied the thermal imaging on her own tablet. Red and orange figures moved inside the warehouse, Vincent's men exactly where she'd predicted they'd be. Guard rotation in 4 minutes, she whispered. That's our window. Bastian's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing once. The touch was brief, but filled with meaning. They'd planned this for days, going over every detail until they could recite it in their sleep. Now it was time to execute. The SUV stopped in a shadowed alley. Around them, Bastion's men melted into position like ghosts. These weren't ordinary thugs. They were trained killers, handpicked for their loyalty and skill. Sarah counted 20 that she could see, knew another 30 were surrounding the perimeter. 2 minutes, Bastion's voice was barely audible. He turned to her, his eyes intense. Stay close to me. She nodded, checking her weapon one last time. Always. The warehouse loomed before them, its metal walls reflecting the sparse streetlights. Security cameras swept back and forth, but Marco had already looped their feed. As far as Vincent's men knew, it was just another quiet night. Movement at the south entrance. Marco's voice crackled through their earpieces. Guard change beginning. Bastion raised his hand, and his men tensed like coiled springs. Sarah watched the thermal imaging, counting the seconds. One guard left his post, then another. The gap they'd been waiting for opened up. Now, Bastion commanded. They moved as one, swift and silent. Sarah stayed close to Bastion's right side as they approached the building. The first resistance came at the side entrance, 2 guards who barely had time to reach for their weapons before Bastion's men took them down with suppressed shots. Inside the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and metal walkways. Their intel had been perfect. Vincent's operations spread out exactly as Sarah had described. Drugs in the east section, weapons in the west, money laundering through the offices above. The first real firefight erupted on the main floor. Vincent's men had better numbers, but Bastion's team had the element of surprise. Gunfire erupted, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Sarah ducked behind a container as bullets pinged off metal around them. 8 hostiles. Second level, she called out, spotting movement on the thermal imaging. They're trying to flank us! Bastion signaled to his men, who immediately adjusted their positions. He moved with lethal grace, each shot finding its mark. Sarah matched his pace, covering their rear as they pushed deeper into enemy territory. The battle intensified. More of Vincent's men poured in from the upper levels. Somewhere, an alarm began blaring. Through her earpiece, Sarah heard reports of casualties on both sides. "Boss, they're moving something out the back!" Marco's urgent voice cut through the chaos. "Looks like they're trying to salvage the shipment." Bastion cursed, firing another precise shot. "We can't let that shipment leave. Everything we need to take Vincent down is in those containers." Sarah spotted movement, a group of men rushing towards a loading dock where trucks were already running. The shipment contained more than just contraband. It held records, proof of Vincent's operations, everything they needed to destroy him. She made a split-second decision. "Cover me!" Without waiting for Bastion's response, she broke from their position, sprinting toward the loading dock. Bullets whizzed past her as she ran, but she didn't slow down. The evidence was too important. Without it, all of this would be for nothing. Behind her, she heard Bastion shouting her name, his voice filled with equal parts rage and fear. But she kept running. Sometimes the most dangerous move was the only move left. Sarah's footsteps echoed across the metal walkway as she pursued Vincent's men toward the loading dock. The evidence they carried could destroy everything. Not just Vincent's empire, but the entire network of corruption she'd spent years investigating. Behind her, gunfire erupted in sporadic bursts, the sound bouncing off steel containers and concrete walls. "You stupid girl," Vincent's voice cut through the chaos. He emerged from behind a stack of crates, his expensive suit pristine despite the mayhem around them. 2 of his men flanked him, weapons trained on her. "Did you really think you could play both sides forever?" Sarah raised her gun, but she knew she was outmatched. "It's over, Vincent. The FBI has enough." "The FBI?" Vincent's laugh was cold. "You think I didn't know? I've owned half your handlers for years." He stepped closer, his familiar smile turning cruel. Poor little Sarah, always trying to do the right thing. A shot rang out, and one of Vincent's men crumpled. Bastion emerged from the shadows, his eyes blazing with murderous intent. "Get away from her!" Vincent's remaining guard swung his weapon toward Bastion, but he was too slow. Bastion's second shot took him down before he could pull the trigger. Now it was just the three of them. Bastion, Vincent, and Sarah caught between them. "Well, well," Vincent drawled, though Sarah could see the tension in his shoulders. The great Bastion Moretti, coming to rescue his little spy. He kept his gun trained on Sarah. "How does it feel, knowing she's been lying to you this whole time?" "Drop the gun," Bastion's voice was deadly calm, "or I'll show you exactly how it feels." The warehouse around them had gone oddly quiet. The firefight had moved outside, leaving this moment suspended in time. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat, too fast, too loud. "You know what's funny?" Vincent's finger tightened on the trigger. "She was mine first. Everything she told you, every secret she shared, it was all part of the plan. My plan." Bastion didn't flinch. "Last warning." "She's good at playing her part, isn't she?" Vincent continued. "Making you feel special, like you're the only one who understands her. But it's all an act. That's what she does. That's what she's always done." Sarah saw the shift in Bastion's eyes, a flicker of doubt that lasted less than a heartbeat. But Vincent saw it too, and his smile widened. "Tell him, Sarah," Vincent taunted. "Tell him how you came to me first, how you offered to help take down his family. Tell him about all the nights we spent planning his destruction." "Shut up," Sarah's voice shook with rage. "You blackmailed me, threatened my family. I made you what you are," Vincent shouted, his composure finally cracking. "Everything you know about this world, you learned from me. And this is how you repay me?" The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Bastion's men were closing in, but Vincent didn't seem to care. His eyes were wild now, fixed on Sarah with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "You want to know the truth, Moretti?" Vincent's laugh was bitter. "She's not capable of love. She's a weapon, trained to destroy men like us, and you fell for it, just like I did." Bastion moved with terrifying speed. His first shot knocked the gun from Vincent's hand. The second brought him to his knees. In seconds, he had Vincent pinned, the barrel of his gun pressed against his temple. "You never understood," Bastion's voice was ice. "She's not a weapon. She's not yours. She's not even mine." He looked at Sarah, and in his eyes she saw something that made her breath catch. "She's her own person, and that's why she chose me." Vincent struggled, but Bastion's grip was iron. Around them, his men emerged from the shadows, securing the area and the precious evidence Vincent had tried to destroy. The battle was over, but Sarah felt frozen in place, caught between the man who had controlled her past and the one who might hold her future. In that moment, looking at Bastion's face, she realized that everything she thought she knew about loyalty and love had been wrong. Vincent had taught her that love was a weapon, a tool for manipulation. But Bastion had shown her something entirely different. The warehouse was silent now, save for the distant sounds of sirens and Bastion's men securing the perimeter. Blood stained the concrete floor where Vincent had fallen, but Sarah couldn't bring herself to look at it. Instead, she watched Bastion, who stood by the window, his broad shoulders tense beneath his suit jacket. "It's over," she whispered, her voice hoarse. The weight of everything, the lies, the mission, the violence, pressed down on her chest until she could barely breathe. Bastion turned slowly, his face half hidden in shadow. The moonlight caught his profile, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw, clenched tight with unspoken emotion. "Is it?" Sarah took a hesitant step forward. Her hands trembled, and she clasped them together to still them. "I never meant to fall in love with me?" His words cut through the air like a blade. "Or to betray me?" "Either," she admitted. "Both." He moved then, crossing the space between them with that predatory grace she'd come to know so well. His hand caught her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. His touch was gentle, but his eyes burned with an intensity that made her heart race. "Do you know what you've done to me?" His voice was rough, barely controlled. "I can't sleep without seeing your face. I can't think straight knowing you might disappear. You've made me weak, Sarah." She tried to look away, but his grip tightened. "I'm not going anywhere." "No?" His laugh was bitter. "Aren't there more criminals to catch? More lives to destroy?" "I resigned," she whispered. "After Vincent, after everything. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep lying to you." Something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear. His hand slid from her chin to cup her cheek, and she leaned into his touch despite herself. "I tried to hate you," he confessed, his thumb tracing her bottom lip. "When I found out who you really were, I wanted to hate you. It would have been easier." Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. "And now? Now?" He pulled her closer, until she could feel the heat of his body, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Now I know that hating you would be like hating myself. You're in my blood, Sarah. You're under my skin." Tears burned behind her eyes. "Bastian, let me finish." His other hand found her waist, anchoring her to him. "You came into my life to destroy everything I've built. You lied to me, spied on me, betrayed my trust. And still..." He pressed his forehead to hers, his breath warm against her lips. "Still, I can't imagine my life without you in it." The tears spilled over now, trailing down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. For everything. But not for loving you." His grip tightened at her words. "Say it again." "I love you." The words came easier now, like a weight lifting from her chest. "I love you, Bastian Moretti, and I don't care what that makes me." He kissed her then, hard and desperate like a man drowning. His hands tangled in her hair, and she clung to him, pouring everything she couldn't say into that kiss. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing heavily. "You're mine now," he said, his voice rough. "No more missions, no more lies. Just you and me." "Just you and me," she agreed, feeling the truth of it settle in her bones. She wasn't an agent anymore, wasn't playing a role or following orders. She was just Sarah, and she belonged with him. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Bastian's office, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floors. Sarah stood by the window, watching the guards patrol the grounds below. The estate felt different now, no longer a prison, but a sanctuary. Bastian's reflection appeared behind her in the glass. He wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. The solid warmth of him made her feel safe, grounded. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured, his lips brushing her ear. "How different everything is now." She leaned into him, letting her hands rest on his forearms. "A month ago, I was undercover, terrified of being discovered. Now you're mine." His grip tightened possessively. "And I'm yours." She turned in his arms to face him, studying the sharp lines of his face. The cold mask he usually wore was gone, replaced by something softer, though no less dangerous. The other families won't like it, an ex-federal agent in their midst. Let them try something. His voice carried that lethal edge she'd come to know so well. Vincent's death sent a message. Anyone who threatens what's mine will meet the same fate. A shiver ran down her spine. Not of fear, but of understanding. This was his world. Their world now. Violence and love, danger and protection, all wrapped up together. "Marco called," Bastian continued, referring to his second-in-command. "The territory dispute with the Rossis is settled. They've accepted our terms." "And the shipments from the port?" "Running smoothly." A small smile played at his lips. "You're getting good at this, you know. The business side of things." She shrugged, but couldn't hide her own smile. I was trained to understand criminal enterprises. Might as well put that knowledge to good use. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. You've changed everything. The way I run things, the way I think. Before you, it was all about power, control. And now? Now I have something worth protecting. His eyes darkened with intensity. Someone worth living for. Sarah's heart skipped at his words. She knew what it cost him to admit such vulnerability. This man, who'd been raised in violence and betrayal, who'd built walls around his heart to survive, was letting her see beneath the armor. A knock at the door interrupted them. Angelo, one of Bastion's most trusted men, entered with a tablet in hand. Boss, the reports you asked for. He nodded respectfully to Sarah. Ma'am? Bastion took the tablet, keeping one arm around Sarah as he scrolled through the information. She watched his face, noting the slight tension in his jaw. Everything okay? She asked when Angelo had left. Just business. He set the tablet aside. Some of our associates are nervous about the changes we're making, cleaning up certain operations, legitimizing others. They're afraid you're going soft. His laugh was sharp. They'll learn. We can be smarter about how we do things without losing our edge. The old ways, Vincent's ways, they're finished. Sarah nodded, understanding. Under Bastion's leadership, with her influence, they were reshaping the organization. Less bloodshed, more strategy. It wouldn't be easy, but together they were strong enough to make it work. Come here, he said suddenly, pulling her closer. His kiss was gentle but possessive, a reminder of everything they'd fought for. When he pulled back, his eyes were intense. I need you to understand something. What? This life, it won't always be easy. There will always be threats. Always be people trying to take what's ours. His hands framed her face, making sure she met his gaze. But I will burn this whole city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you. You're my future, Sarah. Everything else is just business. The conviction in his voice made her breath catch. This was the man she'd fallen for. Dangerous and protective, capable of both violence and tenderness. She reached up, touching his face, feeling the slight stubble under her fingers. Our future, she corrected softly. Together. The morning sun cast long shadows across Bastion's office as he reviewed the latest reports. Sarah watched him from her position by the window, noting how his shoulders tensed with each page he turned. 3 weeks had passed since their showdown with Vincent, and the criminal underworld was still adjusting to the shift in power. Another request for a meeting, Bastion said, his voice tight. The Calabresi family wants to discuss terms of cooperation. He practically spat the last words. Sarah moved behind his chair, placing her hands on his shoulders. His muscles were rigid under her touch. They're testing you. After what happened with Vincent, they want to see if you've gotten soft. He reached up, covering one of her hands with his own. They'll learn differently. The threat in his voice was clear, but there was something else there too, a weariness she rarely saw him display. Let me help, she said, moving to perch on the edge of his desk. I spent years studying these families. I know their weaknesses, their pressure points. Bastion's eyes met hers, dark and intense. You're already helping more than you know. He pulled her into his lap, his arm securing her against him. Having you here, on my side, it changes everything. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marco entered, his face grim. Boss, we've got trouble at the docks. Someone's trying to move in on our territory. Bastion's grip on Sarah tightened fractionally before he let her go. Who? Looks like some of Vincent's old crew. They think with him gone, they can make a play for his old holdings. They're wrong. Bastion's voice was ice. He stood, straightening his jacket. Get the cars ready. We'll handle this personally. Sarah grabbed his arm before he could leave. I'm coming with you. He started to protest, but she cut him off. This is our life now, remember? Our future. I need to be there, to understand how it all works. Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. He nodded once, sharp and decisive. At the docks, the situation was tense. A group of men, former Vincent loyalists, had taken control of one of the warehouses. They'd brought muscle, thinking numbers would give them an advantage. They were wrong. Bastian moved with calculated precision, his men falling into formation around him. Sarah stayed close, watching how he commanded respect with just his presence. The would-be usurpers faltered when they saw him, some already backing away. "You have exactly 1 minute to leave my property," Bastian announced, his voice carrying across the concrete expanse. "After that, I stop being generous." One man stepped forward, braver or stupider than the rest. "Vincent's territory is up for grabs. You can't control it all, Moretti." "Watch me." Bastian's smile was lethal. He nodded to Marco, who moved forward with several other men. What followed was a swift, brutal demonstration of power. Bastian's men overwhelmed the intruders with practiced efficiency. No deaths, that wasn't the message today, but enough pain to make the point clear. Sarah watched it all, her federal agent training warring with her new reality. This was her world now, for better or worse. And watching Bastian command his empire, she couldn't help but feel a thrill of something. Pride? Attraction? Both? When it was over, Bastian returned to her side, his knuckles barely bruised. "You okay?" She nodded, reaching for his hand. "I'm learning. This is different from how Vincent ran things. Vincent was a butcher. He ruled through fear alone." Bastian's thumb traced circles on her palm. Fear has its place, but loyalty, real loyalty, that's what builds an empire. Back at the estate, Bastian called a meeting of his top lieutenants. Sarah sat at his right hand, her presence making a statement clearer than words. She was his partner now, in everything. "The message has been sent," Bastian told his men. "Anyone who thinks they can take advantage of the changes we're making will learn quickly that we're stronger than ever." His eyes met Sarah's across the table, and she saw in them everything he wouldn't say aloud. How she'd changed him, made him better. How together they would build something lasting from the ashes of their old lives. The fallout from their battle with Vincent was settling, but new challenges arose daily. Yet with each one, they grew stronger together, their bond deepening beyond what either had thought possible. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Bastian's office, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Sarah watched him from the doorway, taking in the sight of him bent over his desk, his shoulders tense as he reviewed documents. Even now, months after everything that had happened with Vincent, she still found herself struck by how much her life had changed. "Are you going to stand there all day?" Bastian asked without looking up, a hint of amusement in his voice. Sarah smiled, crossing the room to stand behind him. Her hands found his shoulders, working at the knots of tension she found there. "You've been at this for hours." A soft groan escaped him as her fingers hit a particularly tight spot. "Someone has to keep the empire running. And someone has to make sure you don't work yourself to death doing it." She leaned down, pressing a kiss to his temple. "The meeting with the Russo family isn't until tonight. Take a break." He caught her hand, pulling her around to face him. "What would I do without you?" "Probably get yourself killed," she teased, but there was truth beneath the jest. They both knew how much stronger they were together. His dark eyes studied her face, serious now. "Have you heard from your old handlers?" "No," Sarah shook her head. "After what happened with Vincent, they got the message. They know I'm yours now." The words still felt strange sometimes, not because they weren't true, but because she'd never imagined feeling so content belonging to someone. Bastian pulled her into his lap, his arms wrapping around her waist. "And I'm yours," he murmured against her neck. "Though if you tell anyone I said that, I'll deny it." She laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet office. "Your secret's safe with me, boss." A knock at the door interrupted their moment. Marco entered, his expression serious. Sorry to interrupt, but we've got the final reports from the docks. Everything's secure, but there's been some movement from the smaller families. Sarah felt Bastian's muscles tense under her touch. They're testing you. After what happened with Vincent, they want to see if you've gotten soft. He reached up, covering one of her hands with his own. They'll learn differently. The threat in his voice was clear, but there was something else there too, a weariness she rarely saw him display. Let me help, she said, moving to perch on the edge of his desk. I spent years studying these families. I know their weaknesses, their pressure points. Bastian's eyes met hers, dark and intense. You're already helping more than you know. He pulled her close again, his arm securing her against him. Having you here, on my side, it changes everything. Marco cleared his throat. There's one more thing. The shipment from Europe, there might be complications. Handle it, Bastian ordered. Whatever resources you need, they're yours. Just get it done. When Marco left, Sarah turned back to Bastian. You trust him completely? With business, yes. Bastian's fingers traced patterns on her hip. With you? Never. The only person I trust with you is me. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Once it would have. But now she understood it, felt it herself. This world they lived in, it wasn't safe. Trust had to be earned, and even then, it was precious and rare. I need you to understand something, Bastian said, his voice low and serious. This life, it's never going to be normal. There will always be threats, always be danger. But I swear to you, nothing will ever touch you. Not while I'm breathing. Sarah cupped his face in her hands. I know exactly what this life is. I chose it. I chose you. She kissed him softly. And I'll keep choosing you, every day. His grip tightened on her waist. Say it again. I choose you, she whispered against his lips. Your world is my world now. All of it. The look in his eyes was fierce, possessive, but also tender in a way few people ever got to see. This was the man she'd fallen for. The ruthless Mafia boss who could order deaths without blinking, but who touched her like she was precious. Who had given her a choice when the rest of the world had only ever given her orders. Bastian watched Sarah from across their bedroom as she slipped on her diamond earrings, the ones he'd given her last week, just because he could. The early morning light caught the stones, sending sparkles dancing across her skin. She caught his reflection in the mirror and smiled. You're staring again, she teased, but the flush on her cheeks told him she didn't mind. Can't help it. He crossed the room, his hands finding her waist. You're wearing my diamonds. She leaned back against his chest. Everything I'm wearing is yours. Everything you are is mine, he corrected, his lips brushing her neck. The possessiveness in his voice made her shiver. A knock at the door interrupted them. Boss? Marco's voice called. The shipments are ready for inspection. Give us a minute, Bastian commanded, his eyes never leaving Sarah's reflection. She turned in his arms. You spoil me too much, you know. His laugh was low and dark. I haven't even started. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. This came in this morning. Sarah's breath caught as he opened it. Inside lay a delicate gold bracelet, studded with rubies that matched the ring she already wore. His ring, marking her as his. Bastian, she started, but he was already fastening it around her wrist. You deserve everything, he said simply, and I can give you everything. The weight of the bracelet felt right, like it belonged there, just like she belonged here, with him. I don't need things, she reminded him softly. I just need you. His eyes darkened with emotion. You have me. Always. He pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. Everything I am, everything I have, it's yours too. Another knock, more insistent this time. Boss, the Russo family's representative is here early. Bastian growled low in his throat, but Sarah just smiled. Go, she said. "Show them why you're in charge." He caught her hand before she could step away. "Come with me." She raised an eyebrow. "To the inspection?" "To everything." His voice was firm. "You're not just my woman anymore, Sarah. You're my partner, in all of it." The words settled over her like a warm blanket. She'd earned this. His trust, his love, his empire. After everything they'd been through, after every test and trial, they'd emerged stronger. Together. They made their way to his office, where Marco waited with several other men. The respect in their eyes when they looked at Sarah wasn't just because she was Bastion's. It was because they'd seen her fight, seen her prove herself worthy of her position. "The Russo representative is waiting in the conference room," Marco reported, "and the shipment manifests need your approval." Bastion took his seat behind the massive desk, pulling Sarah to stand beside him. "Show me." As they worked through the business of the day, Sarah felt the rightness of it all. This was where she belonged, not as a spy pretending to be something she wasn't, but as herself, standing proudly beside the man she loved. The empire they'd built together was stronger than anything either of them could have created alone. Where Bastion was fire and fury, she was ice and calculation. Where he ruled through fear, she built alliances. Together, they were unstoppable. "What are you thinking about?" Bastion asked quietly as Marco left to fetch the next set of reports. Sarah smiled, her hand finding his shoulder. "About how far we've come. About how right this feels." He pulled her into his lap, not caring about the papers scattered across his desk. "No regrets?" "None." She traced his jaw with her finger. "This is exactly where I want to be." His kiss was possessive, claiming but also tender in a way only she got to see. When they broke apart, his eyes were intense. "You've changed everything, you know that?" "We changed everything," she corrected. "Together." He nodded, his hand tightening on her waist. "Together." The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Bastion's office, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floors. Sarah stood by the window, her fingers trailing along the cool glass as she watched the guards patrol the grounds below. The estate had become more than just a gilded cage. It was home now, their fortress against the world. Bastion's reflection appeared behind her in the glass. He moved with that predatory grace she'd come to know so well, his presence filling the room like a gathering storm. His hands found her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "The Santiago family sent another request for a meeting," he murmured against her ear, his breath warm on her skin. "They're getting desperate." Sarah smiled, covering his hands with her own. "They should be. After what we did to their drug operation last week, they're bleeding money." "Your idea," he reminded her, pride evident in his voice. "Taking out their transport routes instead of their production facilities. Brilliant." She turned in his arms, studying the face she'd come to know better than her own. The sharp angles of his jaw, the intensity in his dark eyes that could shift from deadly to tender in a heartbeat. "We make a good team. The best." His thumb traced her bottom lip. "Who would have thought? The undercover agent and the Mafia boss." "Former undercover agent," she corrected, earning a possessive growl from him. "I chose my side a long time ago." The intercom buzzed, Marco's voice filling the room. "Boss, the shipment from Europe just cleared customs. And Mrs. Moretti's new security detail is in place." Bastion pressed the button. "Good. Have them report directly to Sarah for instructions." He released the intercom and turned back to her. "Still not used to hearing them call you that. Mrs. Moretti?" She smiled, playing with the platinum band on her finger. "I like it. Has a certain power to it." His eyes darkened with desire. "Everything about you has power. Over me. Over this empire we've built." He pulled her closer, his touch possessive. "You've turned my world upside down, you know that?" For the better, I hope, she teased, though they both knew the answer. The empire they'd built together was stronger than anything either of them could have achieved alone. Where Bastion ruled through force and fear, Sarah brought strategy and diplomacy. His raw power combined with her tactical mind had made them unstoppable. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marco entered, tablet in hand. The reports from the West Coast operation, boss. And the security footage you requested, Mrs. Moretti. Sarah took the tablet, scrolling through the data. The new laundering system is working perfectly. No traces, just like we planned. Bastion watched her work with unconcealed admiration. This was the woman who'd once been sent to destroy him, now using her skills to protect everything they'd built. The irony wasn't lost on him. The Colombians are getting nervous, she continued, showing him the security footage. They've doubled their guards at the warehouse district. Let them worry, Bastion said, his voice cold. After their last attempt to move against us, they should be grateful they're still breathing. Sarah set the tablet aside, remembering the night the Colombian cartel had tried to take them down. They'd learned the hard way that attacking one meant facing both, and neither Bastion nor Sarah showed mercy to their enemies. We should invite them to the charity gala next week, she suggested, a calculating gleam in her eye. Show them exactly what they're up against. The whole underworld will be there. Bastion's laugh was dark and appreciative. Making them watch as every major player pays their respects to us? Cruel, beautiful, and effective. He pulled her close again. This is why I love you. She wrapped her arms around his neck, feeling the strength coiled beneath his expensive suit. Because I'm as ruthless as you? Because you're perfect for me, he corrected, in every way. They stood together, powerful and untouchable, looking out over the empire they'd built from blood and betrayal and love. The world outside might be dangerous, but together they were unstoppable. Everything they'd faced, the violence, the betrayal, the impossible choices, had only made them stronger. I hope you like this story. Please share what's your favorite part of the story and where in the world you are watching from. Have a wonderful day.